Hi, and welcome to episode 41 of the Brewgooders Dynamic League of Beer and Comics. Sorry about my haircut, but we're all in lockdown, so who cares? No hairdressers, and I can't be bothered doing it myself just now. This is Lottie. Lottie's co-hosting the intro segment of this show, where I'm just going to talk about what's happening this week. On our patchwork podcast, because we've had weird technical difficulties with pub quiz and that, we're going to have the pub quiz up and running quite soon, so stay tuned for that. Also, we have a couple of special movie episodes coming up next week. We're going to be joined by Dave Cook, creator of Cultopia, among loads of other things, who's going to sit and watch The Matrix with us, and we're going to, well, not with us because we're going to have to do it remotely, but we're going to chat about that. And then the week after that, I've got another special guest to drink some Stay Puft and talk about the Ghostbusters. So that's going to be the next couple of weeks. Also, hopefully going to do kind of a short livey thing with Colin this week, because actually this week marks the first anniversary of the show, which is pretty cool as well. So we're going to talk about that. This week, I'm going to review a couple of beers. Colin's going to review a comic. And we've got an interview that I recorded a couple of weeks ago with Luke Stone, who is the creator of Hybrids Sons of God, which I reviewed about 2 weeks ago. So go back and check out that episode. It's the episode that ties into the first pub quiz, just in case you're looking for it. I think it's episode 39. Alright, have a nice time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay inside as much as you can, unless you've got a nice garden or whatever, but obviously just be careful, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Hi, my first beer of the week is Basque's Beer Pancake Social Pancake Imperial Stout. I bought this because I thought the can looked amazing. It's from Basqueland, who are a brewer I've never tried before. I got this. I got birthday money from my mother-in-law to go and buy some beer, so I preemptively bought that. It is 11%, so it's quite it packs more of a punch than most beers. It smells very cakey. The smells absolutely phenomenal. Actually, it smells very desserty. Smell a really like sort of maple tone, which obviously goes with what the pancake is. I checked out, there's a bit of lactose in there as well, which gives it that creamy ice creaminess as well. Really, really, like, smells wonderful. That sort of sweet taste comes in the stout. It's great. It's a really lovely stout. As I say, it's 11%, so it's packing a bit of a punch, to be honest. I don't expect that I'll be constructing sentences the same way once I finish this glass, but yeah, absolutely, yeah, I'm loving that. I really, really like that. It's something I would bring to the sort of the tasting element of one of our standard podcasts. Really, really lovely beer from Basqueland. First beer by them, and I'm really, really impressed.
From our 3D printing factory, my son currently is printing lots of face shields for key workers at the moment. During the lockdown, we've had hundreds go out to care homes and nurses and stuff around Fife. So our house has turned into a bit of a factory at the moment with the 3D printers everywhere. But I'm going to do a comic review, and it is this one here, The United States of Murder Inc., which came out in 2014, written by Brian Michael Bendis and illustrated by Michael Oeming. This is from the same creative team as the comic series Powers. So what's this one about? Well, it's some sort of alternate history story where mafia families, 5 different mafia families, now run part of the United States. So they have some of the eastern seaboard of the States, and they also run Las Vegas, because they have a bit of power over the US government. So it links in with a kind of couple of conspiracy theories about JFK, about 9/11, that kind of thing, and that's how it's come that the mafia families have this control. So it follows the stories of these 2 characters here, Valentine Gallo and Jagger Rose, who are young members of one of the crime families. And Valentine's just become a made man, so he's become, part of the crime family, and he's sent on his first mission, and that's to deliver a package of box to a US senator. So he does that, and he's being tailed by Jagger Rose, who's this female hitman for the crime family, and she's kind of just checking that everything's going to go all right with his first job. And he drops off the package, and as soon as he leaves the building, there's a huge explosion, and the senator's killed. And of course, that worries the crime families, because that's going to start off, a war between the US and their territories. So it follows their story. Really interesting artwork here. I first, I think, read this story, part one anyway, was maybe a free comic during Free Comic Book Day some time ago, because I remember reading part one, but I picked up the whole arc from a local comic shop, Little Shop of Heroes in Dunfermline, just before the lockdown, and it's one that I've been kind of looking at. They've had it in a box of back issues for quite some time, so it's 6 parts, but I'm sure just now you can pick up the trade paperback as well, and it's a real page turner. It's one that I really didn't want to end. It's really exciting storyline, lots of cliffhangers in it, lots of twists and turns in the story, as the 5 crime families try and deal with this awful situation that's happened, and we find out there's a bit of a CIA conspiracy here going on as well. Not want to spoil it too much, but yeah, really quite exciting stuff, and like I say, kind of really nice, interesting artwork here from the artist. Very kind of cartoony type characters, which initially put me off, I think, when I first saw this, but I totally grew to love it during the reading of this story. The way they use colour to indicate moods and place and things is really quite interesting in this story. So I finished it after just a couple of days of reading, and I was not wanting it to end at all, and so I went online to see if there was a follow-up, because the last issue does suggest that there might be a follow-up, and certainly there's a bit of editorial stuff in there suggesting that they were going to do that. But when I looked it up, it turns out it was cancelled only about a year later, so there was no initial follow-up. But the trail didn't end there. I found out that there is actually a follow-up that came out about 3 years later, 2018, and it is United States versus Murder Inc. So I'm going to be looking out for that now, because really such a good story, big page turner. You'll see on some of the covers here, it's getting ratings of 10 out of 10. So Comic Vine, Newsarama, Weekly Comic Book Reviews giving it 10 out of 10, or an A-class rating, and it really is that good. I really found this really exciting. I would highly recommend it if you haven't read it already. Again, might be hard to find the individual comics, but you'll probably be able to get a trade paperback, and I'm certainly going to be looking at getting the United States versus Murder Inc., which is the sort of prequel stroke sequel. So that rounds up my comic review of this week. Stay safe, folks.
Hi, I can't get this bottle open.
I'll do it for you.
I have been given a homebrew 6.6% ABV'd American Pale Ale from my friend and my wife's ex-boyfriend. First boyfriend from when she was right wee. Darren, a friend of the podcast, has given us 2 bottles of homebrew that he makes. It's a 6% ABV American Pale Ale with Citra and Simcoe hops, which is quite exciting because we never ever get homebrew given to us. So yeah, send us homebrew. He told me I have to be kind, but I'm just amazed at getting free beer. It's just incredible. Claire's.
Will you say this to Darren?
Oh, it smells good. I'm gonna do that smell test to my wife again. She doesn't. She'll just say.
It smells like beer.
Oh yeah, you can totally smell the is it Simcoe and Citra? Did I say? Then it's got a very central Citra. It's got, you can smell the Citra in it. That's stunningly smelling. That's really good. That's like tropical. That's like tropical fruit tasting. Really light. Not very. It's not very bitter. There's there's quite a strong bit at the end. That's really, really nice. I think it's just because it's 6%. It smells amazing. Reminds me of I'd quite happily buy that off the shelves, to be quite honest. I was total shocked when I asked Darren how much his setup was, because I want to start homebrewing, and let's just say that my homebrew setup will cost about 10% of his. But yeah, if you could spend what you spend in to make that kind of beer, then that's quite amazing. Quite happily, that's shop quality beer. He's doing that in his house, so that's amazing. Right, thank you. Right, so I'm joined by Luke Stone, who is the writer of Hybrids, Sons of Gods. Did I get my my sub name of the comic right there?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, yes, good. It sounds like a stupid question and an unprofessional question, but I did just do an interview last week, and I could not get my head around how to pronounce the name of the comic, which was called Ayanmo Stigmata, which also had kind of interesting religious tones. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so question one that I want to ask you, Luke, is I would like you to give me your Comic-Con pitch. So somebody comes to your table at a Comic-Con.
Oh yeah, okay. So I actually do really well in Comic-Cons, believe it or not. That's kind of my, and right now it's, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but it's kind of difficult with all these cons shutting down, because this is my main way of selling. So I'm not distributed through Diamond or anything.
Yeah.
This is my main way of selling. I like to do this. I like to say, so first my question is, do you like comic books? So do you like comic books, man?
Yes.
Of course you do, right? So have you ever heard of this of a creature called the Nephilim by chance? Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah, I haven't. No.
You haven't? Okay. Well, let me tell you a story, okay? About somewhere way before we even get to the Greek gods, there was this story that every major religion talks about, and it's a story about the sons of God. They see the daughters of men, and basically these angels, they come down and they see the ladies and they like them, and so they start to procreate with these women. Mm-hmm. And start to have children. And it talks about it in Genesis chapter 6 in the Bible, but not just there, but like every major religion in the world has some form of reference to this particular moment, this big moment that happened in history. And so that happened a few hundred years prior to the first stories of the Greek gods. In fact, the Greek gods were probably most likely sparked by a guy named Nimrod, who's also referred to in a few different texts. Yeah. And it's likely that he was either one of these Nephilim creatures, a human-angel hybrid, or he was in some way, somehow related to that. But then many people, as scholars, people that are way smarter than I am, actually believe that the Greek gods were inspired in some way by the real life Nephilim. And so that got me thinking, with the whole 23andMe culture, the, Ancestry.com and that kind of stuff. Yeah. What if these angel human hybrids, what if they continued to have babies and father children throughout history? And what if this DNA that they had, this special hybrid, angel human hybrid DNA, what if it started to dilute over the generations and eventually became something like a recessive trait? Okay. So people walking around right now, well, not many people are walking around right now, but if anyone walking around in the convention hall at that point in time, what if one of them or a few of them could actually have a little bit of angel DNA? If they took that 23andMe test and they found out they had a little bit of angel DNA in them. So what if that would happen? But then what if something would happen that would allow or cause this DNA, this recessive trait to wake up? And so instead of having a recessive trait that gives you red hair or blue eyes, you could have a recessive trait that would then give you the power of the Greek gods. So you would have the ability to lift buildings or to see the future or to control people with your mind, maybe even teleport through time and space. So, these are some of the things that, what if you could actually possess these powers? And that's kind of a cool thought. And so we actually explore that in Hybrids, the Sons of Gods, and that's kind of the backdrop of our world. But that's not really where the story is going. What happens is overnight people start to develop the powers of the Greek gods.
Yeah.
But just as quickly as they start to develop those powers, these individuals begin to vanish. And so what we do in Hybrids, the Sons of Gods, this first arc is called Trash Day.
Yeah.
We follow a band of small heroes, a small band of intrepid heroes that they're trying to find out three things. Who is taking these people? Where are they taking these people? And why are they taking these people?
Yeah.
And so we have some heroes and some not heroic individuals that have banded together to try to find out the answer to these three questions, because they have some real personal connections and real personal reasons for doing that. So that's kind of the premise of this. It's, if you will, it's the Book of Enoch meets the movie Taken. It's one of those things that I like to tell people. So
I love that. It's that's that thing that you hear a lot at cons is it's my comic is this meets that. So
yeah.
That's really cool. Nah, that sounds really good. My previous life, my first degree before I got where I am just now was in religious studies. So the idea of so particularly like you were saying, the Abrahamic tradition has a lot of corresponding stories, obviously, because the Torah and the Quran and the Bible have like reference many of the same events, maybe told slightly differently. But I like that, and I like that. Obviously, there's the idea as well where like with the way religion is kind of anthropomorphized. I don't know if that's the word. I'm using that in the right context. But obviously, there's Egyptian and Christian influence, and a lot, all these stories and these traditions kind of start to influence each other. It's quite interesting. I love that. You see up in even Scotland, where Scotland and England, where a lot of Christian events in Scotland are celebrated around about the same time as traditional sort of Celtic festivals were also, and there's like a historical reason for that as well. So I think the idea that you're suggesting that if you go back far enough, these events happened, and it's led to a development in human society that is just starting to rebound today is really, really cool.
Yeah.
I think the Trashman character is phenomenal, for example. He's obviously, I've only read the first issue and a half so far, but Trashman's like a highlight. Like even down to being called Trashman's really smart. So.
I mean, but there's some really cool things about that. I mean, even if we look back at how the Nephilim and the Greek gods, how they kind of overlay a bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of conspiracy theories and things, and so oftentimes I'll say, Hybrids is an action adventure story set around the advent of a new superhuman species, because people sometimes don't know what the Nephilim are or anything like that, and it includes theories around the Nephilim and ancient aliens, and so a lot of these old ancient alien stories that you might see, some of that plays into all of those things, and we actually exploit some of those things in our stories. And so I always tell people, if you're into superheroes, obscure history, Greek mythology, the Nephilim, conspiracy theories, religious lore, or movies where people are saving people, like Taken and things like that, then you're probably going to be into this, because there's as we go through the action, we deal with some of those things. For every religion to kind of mention these things and mention certain characters, and there's certain names that you'll see pop up here, over and over, and so it's not just one religion or multiple religions. It's kind of, obviously there was something that happened, and even in historical accounts you'll see some of these things, and
that's
when
amazing.
you really start trying to draw it together, the yarn, so to speak, can tie around each one of these things, and you can start to get some really fun kind of connections with these conspiracies, and we do that with this book for certain.
That's really interesting. That's really it's an amazing way to approach the book. I think it's quite exciting, and that's the word I would want to use. Obviously, I will attach a review of a hybrid to this interview when it's released. But one of the things I would point out, just from before I've recorded anything like a review, is how exciting, particularly issue 1 is. It just moves at such a breakneck pace that it's really, really exciting. It does, and it's amazing that you mentioned Taken, because it reminded me of that would be a film that I would draw from if I was to say, oh, it feels a bit like Taken, just in that kind of pace. There's um, I remember the first time I saw Taken in the cinema, and I do remember that whole the first 15 minutes are kind of, you're establishing what's going on, and then all of a sudden it just isn't lit up for the rest. And I think your comic issue one does that particularly. There's the start where the guys are picking up litter in a litter. That's such a British term. They're picking up trash, and
Yeah.
and discussing things that are kind of going on around them, and then all of a sudden, bang! The story just doesn't stop until say it stops a wee bit so that the guy can pick up his dog. But apart from that, the story just keeps on going, and it doesn't stop until, you know what I mean. It moves really really quickly until you get to the end of the issue, and then there's a slight bit of breathing room when Trash Man meets the rest of this group. But
Yeah.
no, it's just really it's exciting, and it's as I say, I'm trying to fire through this interview so I can get back to reading it. To be honest, it's my
I
evening
appreciate you
reading.
saying that. I really do appreciate you saying that. This was actually the first book that I ever wrote. So I've been an artist for a while, but it was the first one that I wrote,
Mhm.
and I wanted something to be. I have ADHD, so I wanted something that was going to be pretty fast paced
Yeah,
and be able to kind of move along. But I also wanted the breathing, like you said, the breathing room, the
Yeah.
areas where you could, and I wanted to establish early on that Trash Man is though he's a superhuman, it's not the super that makes him extraordinary. It's the human part that
Yeah,
makes
absolutely.
him extraordinary.
well, I was just saying the interactions with Sergeant Pepper, his dog,
Yeah,
are amazing because I think I think again it humanizes him, and there's all this stuff going around, but he manages. And there's a really interesting panel. I don't want to spoil this because my next question is going to be asking about where people can get this. But there's a really awesome panel where he's going to leave the dog, and he says, "I'll be back as soon as I can," and then he leaves, and then finds out that exit is blocked. So but instead of like finding another way out, he actually pauses for a very brief moment to get the dog, and then continue, which is amazing. I think that's really that was probably one of my favorite bits of the story so far, is this idea that even when he's realized these guys are going to try and do something horrible to me, and they want me to come quietly, and there's going to be a confrontation, he's realized that he's still got his wee dog in the flat that he also needs to look after, which is really really cool. So he just picks up and puts it in his backpack and is like, "No, sorry, you're gonna have to come with me after all," which is, I think, is amazing. It was.
well, it's his family,
Yeah, absolutely.
This guy, he's got a real sense of family,
Mhm.
and what I try to portray is that in the matter of 24 hours, this guy's family grows,
Yeah,
and that same veracity for which he was willing to defend Sergeant Pepper through issues 3 and 4, which are also available now. You can see that same intensity is there for his new family as well.
Oh, great! That's amazing. Brilliant. So, yeah, you mentioned that issues 1 to 4 are out. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yeah, they are. They're out. You can actually get those from the Starcross website at www.starcross.com. Now, I don't know that we offer international shipping there,
Yeah.
but I do offer international shipping from our Kickstarter that we're running. But if there's anyone that is across the pond, so to speak, and you want to get a hold of the copies, just make sure you get a hold of me, and I will make sure you get books,
Magic.
whether physical or digital.
Absolutely. Cool. Excellent. That sounds good. So can we talk very very briefly? I know issue 5, because I'm a backer. Am I right in thinking issue 5 is going to be back on Kickstarter quite soon? Well, as soon as things change.
Yeah. We have actually, so we're on Kickstarter, and we have actually hit our first funding goal there.
Mm-hmm.
But we are on our way to unlocking what we call a stretch goal. And so basically, if we can hit, we're at $392 as of the time of recording right now, with 24 backers. We're hoping to get up to 500. If we can hit 500, then what we are going to do is there is a mini comic that we are writing that goes along with this. That's actually I'm drawing it this week, and so it's going to be my coronavirus project. So
okay.
it'll be done here in about 2 weeks. It's a short mini comic that basically gives us a little more insight to a character that we don't meet until issue 5.
Oh, cool.
And so without giving any spoilers, we meet this character at the end of issue 5, and then we're presenting an 8-page story that gives some more insight to this person. But like everything else, I don't want it to just focus on her powers or things like that. I want it to focus on her humanity. And so we actually the theme of that mini 8-page comic is mental health. And so, and kind of the struggles that people have with mental health every day.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of that underlying theme with it. I'm very proud of that writing. I think it's some of the best writing that I've done. And the art, obviously, you've got issue 1. I drew issue 1 a few years back, and my art has improved over the course of the series, and so I'm really excited about this issue 5, and then issue this mini issue coming out too. And so we're gonna, if we hit 500, we're gonna make that available to everyone digital. We are only printing 50 of those, and so that is one of those. You've got to get in on one. If you want a physical copy of it, then you've got to get in on one of the tiers that allow that. And they are a little more expensive, and we understand that right now might be a difficult time for people to want to back something that's a little more expensive. But we are going to make that available if we can hit the 500 mark. And we do have a what I call the hard times package right now.
Yeah.
And it's only $25 US. And I can open this up to where we can ship it international. We'll make it a little more expensive if we do that, though.
Yeah, of course.
With shipping. But we've got a $25 option. And basically what it is you just get all 5 physical copies for $25 US. And, and we can, we can open that up to where we can ship it internationally too. So in fact, since you've got probably listeners that are over there, in that part of the world, I'll probably go ahead and do that. After recording, I'll go ahead and open that up for a shipping for international. Right now, I think it's only for the U.S., but we just want to we wanted people that wanted to get in with the physical copies of it and get their hands on the paper, on the floppies, the ability to be able to do that, especially during this tumultuous time without having to break the bank. And so we're trying to make that very super affordable for them. But then anybody else that wants all these extras and all the fun stuff, they can get that too. So.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much. What I'll do is I will put a link to your Kickstarter up once we've finished recording as well. Hopefully that'll get a wee bit some more eyes onto your project. But thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything else you'd like to plug or give a shout out to before we wrap this to an end?
Sure, yeah. We've got a big world that we're creating, like this kind of like a multi-universe creation that we're doing with Starcross Comics. And I just encourage anybody to, if you're looking for comics with kind of a slightly different worldview than what is typically in mainstream, and you're looking for something that is going to revolve around kind of this world of angels, demons, conspiracy theories, old lore, and all of those things, well, we're creating an entire universe around that. And so Hybrids is just one piece of that. This series actually sets the foundation for it's kind of the linchpin of all those other ones. So there's a comic called Tribulation Task Force that a friend of mine does that is connected to this. Another one called GOD that is connected to this. Global Order Decree is what that stands for.
Wow.
And then one called Red Talon. And all of those kind of fit into this pocket of the Hybrids universe. And so we're excited about that. It's something that we're working hard to do. Yeah. And it gives everybody an opportunity to kind of expand on the story, because in some way all of them are connected.
Yeah, totally. That's really, really cool. Yeah, I like the idea of multiverses and things like that. So what I'll do is I'll fire Starcross's website up on this as well, and so that people that want to can access it as well. That sounds amazing, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll get you. We'll be in touch. We'll get you on the show again quite soon. I think if you would have us again, if you would like to come and join us, that would be amazing.
Absolutely, anytime.
Awesome. Man.
I always love to come talk about comics. Comics is kind of my thing.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.